Hey everybody, hope you guys are all doing okay, and a warm welcome to anybody who's new to the channel, because today we are going to be starting a new project. That is correct. Today we're going to be looking at Chronicon, and to do that, well, there's going to be two phases to it. First, I'm going to be talking about the game generally, and then I'll be talking about the game in a more in-depth way, with the goal of trying to persuade you that this is an excellent game which you should try if you enjoy action RPGs. And to do that, I'll actually be showing you one of the characters I've built. This is the only character I have so far, but this is a character that I've taken all the way to the end game. And you might be wondering, well, why do that? Why not just start from the beginning? Well, it's because where this game really shines is in the end game. In fact, so much so that you can almost think of it as everything else in the game, you know, the story, the main campaign, even the early parts of the end game are really just there to prepare you for the end game, and then the end game is where the real fun happens. So that's how this is going to be. But before we start talking about the end game, before I start showing you my build or anything fun like that, let's talk about the game in more general terms. So as you can see, we've got this kind of top-down perspective. Our character is running around. We've got a few summons. Well, one of them's a summon, the other one is a pet. They're following us around, but the main character we have is the one with this little aura around her. This is the warden that we're playing as, and you've probably noticed some similarities between the way this game is presenting itself and other games. For instance, you might think of Diablo 2, or Path of Exile, or Torchlight. And indeed, this game is very much in the same vein as those games. This is an action RPG where you run around, you control one main character, you might have other summons, but you are directly in control of this one character, and this is the character that will level up and gain all kinds of awesome bonuses as you get stronger, plus all kinds of excellent loot as you progress through the game, and that is what your game will revolve around, at least while you're playing as that character. You can, of course, always go back to the main menu and roll a new character in a different class, and each character has its own playstyle. But yes, that is the first thing that you'll want to know, is that it is based around individual characters. And this particular one is a warden. Now, the other thing is the specific gameplay style of this game. Now, I mentioned that it looks like you can analogize it to Diablo 2, Path of Exile, Torchlight, games like that. But in terms of the game mechanics, I would say it's actually closer to Diablo 3. Now, I say that with some degree of caution, because I know Diablo 3 doesn't necessarily have the best reputation, especially among certain kinds of RPG purists, or like people who are hardcore fans of Diablo 2 back in the day. Diablo 3 wasn't necessarily as good of a game in a lot of people's opinions. And when I say this game is like Diablo 3, I mean it in a few very specific ways. So I mean it in the sense that the monsters will level up along with you to a certain degree, whereas in Diablo 2 you had low level areas, and then you had high level areas, and then you had higher difficulties. But each monster was in an area with a specific level range, and they were restricted to that range. In this game, monsters and the loot that they drop will keep pace with you at least till you hit level 100. Then the gameplay will change and you can start getting different kinds of drops. Actually, it's even before you hit level 100, like the game will gate certain kinds of drops. So you won't start seeing legendaries until you hit a certain level. You won't see certain kinds of crafting materials until you hit a certain level. And then once you hit level 100, you can start seeing what the game calls true legendary items. So that's one similarity it has with D3 is that the monsters and the environments will just be passively leveling up along with you, and the game will slowly start phasing in certain kinds of drops that you can get along the way. There is one other important similarity this has with D2, which is an endlessly scaling combat scenario that you can put yourself into. So whereas Diablo 3 had greater rifts, this game has the endless dungeon anomalies. As you can see, it is on tier 50 right now. That's the highest I've gone. I could go higher than that. This is just the highest I've gone so far, because similar to the greater rifts, you've got to actually beat them before you can progress. You can't automatically go to the highest one that you're able to beat. So you've got to go through the early level ones and then work your way up. And one other similarity between this game and D3, the most important one, is that the endgame is largely built around item sets. And each set, so right now, my build is built around the High Ranger's gear item set. And each item set will lend itself to a particular skill, and it'll greatly buff that skill. So for instance, this set, if we look at the description, what this does for us, and we're looking here at the yellow text, these are the set bonuses. So this set, what it does for us is that, first of all, it buffs overdraw and double draw, but more importantly, it buffs razor tips so that it stacks infinitely. Now we'll talk more about that later on when we look at my build. But yes, that's what I wanted to draw your attention to, is that the end game is built around item sets and or gear in general. Like there are other synergies, like there's one synergy that you can have that buffs you for not having set items, but I'm going with an item set right now. So I guess the more general way to put it is that your end game will be built around the gear you have, and you've got to think carefully about the gear that you pick, because if you go with the right kinds of synergies, you can really boost your power up to a large degree. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I said I would be trying to convince you that this game is worth checking out, and that I would be doing that by talking about the end game and by showing you my build. Now, what I mean by that is, and I think the best comparison here is Path of Exile. I've played Path of Exile, I've loved that game, and I continue to enjoy that game, although now I watch it more than play it myself. But with Path of Exile, one thing I loved about that is the level of complexity that you can have for your build. But one thing that keeps me from getting into Path of Exile is it's kind of not the friendliest game to people who are starting fresh. And even though I've played the game before, so many updates have come for it since that, like, I feel like a new player at this point. But the game doesn't necessarily make it easy for you to go in blind and experiment with your own builds. It kind of like when you're playing it, you feel like you're punished for not looking up builds ahead of time and not looking up. Like if you don't look up optimal or at least endgame feasible builds, you will not have a good time. Like, you'd have to meticulously research the statistics, and it would just take you a lot of time. This game, on the other hand, is good because you can freely experiment. Like, at any time I want, I can go up to this here fellow, King Tinka, and I can go to manage skills and masteries, and at no cost I can reset. Either I can reset my entire skills, or if I want, I can go to edit skills and masteries. I can even import builds. I haven't done that yet, but that is a very handy option to have. I can go to edit skills and masteries, and I can fine-tune things. So for instance, if I feel like I've gotten too many points into my mana, I can start putting some points into damage or health. I can like take a point out, and then I have a free point. I can go spend that point however I wish, although in this case I would rather just put it back into mana. Alright, so that is one reason why this game is good, is because you are able to change your build on a dime. You don't feel like you're being punished for not knowing the optimal builds ahead of time. But at the same time, it does carry on with the skill tree system that Diablo 2 had, which Diablo 3 got rid of. So if I go to the left, I have pretty traditional looking class trees with a mixture of active skills and passive skills, similar to what Diablo 2 had, and you can put points into them, and depending on which points you put into which skills, you can rank them up or not rank them up. And you also get passive skills based on how many points you have in an individual skill. So that aspect of the game is reminiscent of Diablo 2. So they kept that. They also kept, if we go back to this, and if we scroll to the right, the mastery tree. Now this is, again, a mixture of things that you can rank up only to a certain degree. That's going to be mostly the ones at the top and bottom, which are tied to your main skill trees. So right now my focus is on mainly wind and a bit of druid mastery, although I'm going to be changing up my build in subsequent videos. But yes, these are the ones where you can spend points to buff your existing like the main build that you've gotten. But you've also gotten this stuff in the middle, which, like, some of it is limited, like you can only raise your experience to a certain point. But then there's also stuff that you can just like endlessly boost, although the boosts do start getting smaller as you get later on. These are more like Paragon levels in D2. So they kept that element, sorry, Paragon levels from D3. So they kept that element from D3, meaning your progression doesn't simply just end. Like in D2, once you hit level 99, the only way you could progress is by, I guess, getting all the runes that you needed, all the rare runes. Like if you needed a Zod rune or a Jar rune, you could build up your rune words, and then you were just looking for minor things like perfect charms or like perfect rolls in certain items. But those things were so few and far between that you really kind of felt like the progression of your character had hit a brick wall, and like this was it. And you weren't really gonna get any stronger from leveling up. In this game, you can continue giving yourself small bonuses by continuing to level up your masteries. even when you no longer have any skill points to spend, because after level 100, I think unless they raise that cap, you don't get any of those points. There is one other way, actually a couple other ways, to boost up your character, and one awesome way is through the expedition tree. Now, the way this works is that you can do different expeditions, and each of them have their own themes, their own climates, their own environments, and to do expeditions, you basically have to do different kinds of missions, and the difficulty scales up the deeper you go. But as you clear missions, you unlock these side paths, and these are not missions to do, but rather passives that you can purchase with a combination of crystals, which is the basic currency, and golden crystals, which is a specific high tier currency that you can unlock later on. Now, we'll be talking about how to unlock these currencies later on, but for now, let's just focus on what a clever system this is. So, you beat these missions, which gives you some experience, some reward, but as an extra reward, you can get these bonuses. So it's almost like leveling up in a way, the kinds of bonuses you get. Like, these are all passive bonuses, but it feels like the kinds of things that you'd put skill points into. But the way that the game gives it to you, I am sure other games have done something similar, but this is the first time I've really seen this in a game, and it's just really, really, really cool. Like, I've done all of the expeditions, and I've unlocked the final passives in all of them, but there's just so much I haven't gotten yet, and it's just such a novel way of advancing your character. There is one last way of advancing your character, that is through your beast. So right now I have the Greater Flame Beast, that is the highest tier of beast, and each time you upgrade your beast, you can equip on them different artifacts. Now, what artifacts are is they just give you extra passive bonuses, and you upgrade your beast by spending materials that you get through the campaign, and then you can get different articles by crafting them at this person here, and that's just an extra layer of character customization, character advancement, and the sum total of it means that there are 3 different main ways of getting your character advanced, at least on a surface level. Actually, 4 ways. So the first way is leveling up, the second way is finding loot, the third way is the expedition tree, the fourth way is the artifacts you've equipped on your beast. But of course, there is one thing I haven't talked about yet, and that is enchanting. Now, what would any good RPG be without an enchanting/crafting system? And the enchanting in this game might be my favorite aspect about this game, especially the way it ties into your endgame builds. So let's talk about enchanting for a bit. The way it works is that, and I guess, you know what? Let's do a greater boss anomaly pretty quickly. Just so I can show you how enchanting works on a random item. Because the enchanting system itself is a lot of fun. But I don't want to do it on any of the items that I'm saving. I'd rather do it on an expendable item that I can just sell when I'm done. Might as well hit these shrines. So, the way enchanting works in this game is you talk to the NPC who can enchant things for you. You show them the item, and there's a few things you can do. You can re-roll enchantments, and you... Well, when you re-roll enchantments, you get one of the ones that the item is capable of rolling. But you can also hold on to the enchantments that you want. So for instance, let's look at what this item can give us. It can give us epic enchantments like stunning, interrupting, phase walking, kill haste is probably my favorite one. Major enchantments like resist all, that's a really good one. Minor enchant, it has one of those as well. So a minor enchant, the one I would prefer is like out of this list, probably just bonus experience. Honestly, is that on the list? It might not be on the list. So let's go with Magic Find. So the way you would enchant is you would re-roll the item, scramble the item. That gives it new enchantments. Oh hey, and look at that, we got Magic Find. But if we look at the other enchantments, it's got movement speed, health, and vampire. Like, these aren't any good. So if I wanted to, I can keep the Magic Find enchantment by augmenting it once. That locks it, meaning if I roll it again, if I scramble the item again, then these enchantments are going to be different. Now we have mana regen and healing. This item, of course, is bound to... So this enchantment of movement speed is bound to the item. So that one is going to stay. I'm not going to waste any more currency enchanting that particular item. The reason I showed this to you is because enchanting in this game is a way for you to craft perfect items. So I think this is more of a D3 thing than a D2 thing, where items would roll with some guaranteed enchantments and some possible enchantments that you could get. But D2 also, sorry, D3, I keep mixing up the two, also limited you to the degree to which you could customize an item, meaning you would always have to settle for something even if it didn't necessarily have the perfect stats. Either it didn't have the right kinds of enchantments on it, or they weren't at the highest level. Of course, I think eventually primal legendaries became a thing, and you could partially fix that, although still I think sometimes it might roll with useless enchantments on it, and then you'd have to fiddle things around. What I like about this game is that it gives you a way of finding gear and then making that gear perfect. And of course you do have to spend a lot of crystals on it. For instance, on one of my items, I think it was for maybe my amulet. Yes, it was for my amulet. I was trying to get damage reduction on it. It took me forever. I spent tens of millions of crystals re-rolling this until I got the proper enchantment on it. But still, that's a more accessible way of getting your top tier gear rather than sinking tens of thousands, well, maybe tens of thousands is a stretch, like hundreds of hours grinding until you just happen to get a perfect drop. So that's what I like about this game, is that it isn't an easy game, but it gives you pathways to flesh out your build without forcing you to just sink, you know, more time of your life than you need to in grinding. And that was my one issue with Diablo 2. As much as I loved it, with Diablo 2, Diablo 3, even Path of Exile, is that games like those kind of fall into the mentality of that it's okay to expect the player to spend hours doing things that they aren't necessarily enjoying just for the sake of the grind. And it's debatable whether the grind itself is enjoyable. I would argue that it isn't. But some people might argue that you can teach yourself to enjoy it. Anyway, the point is this game doesn't force you to do that. Yes, you can grind for specific items if you want, but you can also go the other route and just spend your currency to make the items into what you want. And the way this game gives you that choice, I think, is what really puts it over the edge for me. Now, there is one last thing to talk about before I close up this video. I feel like I've already given you some good reasons for why you should play this game, but there is one final thing to cover, and that is the quality of life. And the amount of care that has gone into this game, into just quality of life improvements, honestly, some of them that I wouldn't even have thought of if this game hadn't given me the choice. So there's one thing that I want to talk about, and that is loot filters and radial loot. Now, loot filters by now are a standard part in most modern action RPGs. That much, okay, that's the bare minimum. But then there's also customized radial loot. So what radial loot does is that it will automatically pick up. It'll automatically pick up things within a certain radius around you. Like if you see my character, this circle around them is radial loot. I can turn it off, I can turn it on, but radial loot will pick up things automatically. Let me go back to the settings. I'll go to loot filters, that's where it is. Radial loot, I can give it specific instructions for what I want to pick up. So for instance, if I only want to pick up potions or elixirs, if I only want to pick up consumables, or if I only want to pick up true legendary equipment, like if I'm farming for one very specific thing and I don't want my inventory getting cluttered up by other things, I can set these filters the way I want it to. Now, ordinarily you might think, well, why wouldn't you only look for the highest level items? It's because I guess I should go over this now. I was kind of thinking about saving it for the next video. But one way you can enchant your gear is by applying runes to it. And what runes do is that they will take the enchantment of one item, that is the special bonus that it gives you, like snatch it out of the item, put it into a rune, and then you can apply it onto another item. So for instance, I have my mythical bow, which can take 2 different runes, and I have applied 2 runes on it. One is a greater rune, one is a lesser rune, but these are essentially taking this already powerful item and giving it essentially the bonuses of other unique or legendary equipment, which is a fantastic way to customize your gear and really opens up a world of possibilities. Now, what does this have to do with loot filters? Well, let's say ordinarily I don't like picking up unique equipment because it isn't worth that much, and I've already found all of the unique equipment I can find for the codex. I don't need it for the achievement. But let's say maybe for the purposes of enchantment, I was looking for something that only is attached to a unique set of boots, for example, and it isn't on legendary or true legendary or anything like that. I could set the loot filter, or rather the radial loot filter, to only pick up unique equipment. And that can help me take away some of the tedium that comes with when you're farming for a specific thing. And I guess in a nutshell, talking about the quality of life in this game, and not just the quality of life, but the game design, you know, the enchantment system, and the general balance and the progression of it, is that, like, if there's one takeaway you have from this video, is that this game will be fun without being tedious. And the way that the developer has struck this balance, honestly, it continues to amaze me every time I play this game. Is that very rarely do I feel like I'm doing a chore. As much as I loved Diablo 2, as much as I like Diablo 3, I'll admit it. Not as much as D2, but, you know, no game is perfect. As much as I loved Path of Exile as well, or even other games like Torchlight, like that Van Helsing game, as much as I love those games, often while playing those, I would feel like I was simply doing a chore. This game, I've gotten to tier 50 on the endlessly scaling endgame final dungeons, which I think is pretty far. You know, 50 tiers is decent, and I still have yet to feel like I'm grinding, which is just amazing. So, if, like I said, if there's one takeaway from this video, it's this. Like, this game will give you fun without giving you tedium. And that is, I think, a pretty good reason for you to play it. But anyway, I think that is going to be all for this opening episode. We didn't actually do very much. All we did was we looked at a greater boss anomaly, but mainly what I wanted to do was I just wanted to give you an overview of what this game is like, and I hope I've given you a good sense of what you can expect from this game. And more to the point, I hope you've gone away from this video at least maybe open to the idea of giving this game a chance, because it really is an excellent game. So that is, I think, gonna be all for this overview video. We're gonna close things off. When we come back, we're gonna have our first actual proper Let's Play session. Just shoot at these dummies, why not? We'll have our first actual Let's Play episode. And in that, I'll explain how the Let's Play is gonna work. It's gonna be a bit of an unorthodox Let's Play. We're gonna be doing things a bit differently from how you might normally expect. But that's gonna be for the next video. For now, I think it is time to close, to bring things to a close. Hope you guys got a good sense of what this game's like. And I do hope you'll at least consider giving it a shot. And if you do, feel free to let me know what you thought about it, what your builds were like, what cool little things you found in this game, because I've been playing this for a while, but I am by no means an expert. I learn something new about it literally every single session. So yes, I would love to hear what any of you who do play this game have to say about it. But yes, thank you so much for watching. Hope you'll stick around for the Let's Play we'll be doing for Chronicon. But even if you don't, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.